it's again, it just tells the story of it's the evil and the ugliness of people's hearts these days is everywhere.
This is Franky Rose's Think Tank. Here's your host, Franky Rose.
Well, good afternoon. Well, no, good morning here. Good afternoon for a lot of you. So we just had lunch in Jennifer Crumbley's case, and they should be joining us soon. They were supposed to start just about 5 minutes ago. So it is very interesting. The defense is doing a lot better than they were. And I don't know. I think she's in over her head still. The prosecution, they've been interviewing, or we've got on the stand, the woman that owns the horse stables where they kept their 2 horses. Just basically a little bit as they talked about their different conversations, different messages back and forth, her fear of people coming to her facility or property wanting to know more. She's just had a lot of different fears and her own opinions as far as what she thought was going on in the Crumbley family. Crumbley. The Crumbleys crumbled. Well, hello, P9. Just kind of waiting here for the court to open up again. Now, I'm pretty sure it's been an hour. Didn't he say 1 o'clock their time? Pretty sure. I'll bring her up because she can't be that much longer, I'm assuming. Did you guys all have a good lunch? Nice. I just talked to TMZ and I'll be going on with them in about an hour and a half. So like I say, I'll just make it easy. I'll do that over here and nice. Yes, you did. So what do you think about this morning? Did it go better than you expected or? Ooh, taco salad. Yummy. Love it. That's one of my faves. So did you think she did better this morning than she did on Friday? I think she may have done a little bit, but I'm concerned that that jury said this show go on. I might grab a banana. So do I. Yeah, she really does. And just the fact that that jury's seen all of that, like, look at how we reacted. We're not even sitting in there. It's just like, what? We'll see how she goes. I'm just blown away. Yeah, that was in this show. It was like, what? And now I'm looking at her like, I don't know how I feel about you at this point. I seem really bad. And then with that, oh, I'm just gonna unalive myself. I mean, open court, just a few things that just didn't sit well. And the prosecutors are doing well. They're very organized, but they got a big team. Now, I don't know why she doesn't have a bigger team. Her and that girl sitting behind her, and a guy that sits at the end of that. Nobody really does anything. Maybe she just prefers being in the limelight. I don't know. Some people are like that. I agree with you, Carrie. I agree. The way she flings her hair and even her arms is a little bit odd. It's just like, oh, hello, Nancy. Thank you, man. Thank you very much. No, look at when she sits there. She's got her arms like splayed out on the either side, and it's just like, yeah, really, really unusual individual. I mean, maybe she can fix this, but oh boy, we can't see any more of that. And I'm surprised actually that Jennifer Crumbley kept her on. I don't think I would have. It is. Yes. She sounds like she just got off a bull or something. Or something. Yes. Looks like she's flailing when she's speaking. It does. And even when she sits in her chair, she's splayed out. Just the weirdest thing. And if the jurors don't like her, that's going to be a problem. See, look at around her waist. Like what? Damn.
All right.
Mhm. And is she pregnant or isn't she? If she's not, she shouldn't wear something that tight.
Do you have that exhibit list too? Yeah, you can have it back. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't think so. Let's see if she can hold it together for an afternoon.
Your Honor, calling people first, Jennifer Crumbley, case number 22279-990 FH.
I have a question for you. We had a discussion about a juror last week. I think the juror, because I said if anyone approaches you or does anything, let me know. And I also
They muted us. And if she's not pregnant, I wouldn't be showing that. No, no. Yeah, I can agree with that for sure. Oh my God. Just a mess. I tell you what. Yeah, I just don't like the situation, but lots of room for her to appeal, and we'll just do this all over again anyways. I think the apology is when she said that, oh, I'm just going to KILL myself. I think that's what it was for. You know, these people just lost 4 kids from someone being deleted. And then she's like, yeah, I'm just going to delete myself. It's like, oh my God. So that's what I think anyways. But yeah, comparing it to a Taylor Swift song, yeah, that doesn't sound like a great idea either. I think this woman makes quite a few mistakes.
All right, I'm going to ask all of you to exit with the exception of juror number 5. Juror in seat 5, okay? My clerks are like, what the heck is she doing? So that's why we're not. Yeah, just for a few minutes, just for a few minutes. Don't worry, don't worry. All right, you may be seated. Okay, juror number 5, I don't want to make you nervous. What's that? Oh, the jury's never on here, right?
Yeah, I'm not showing that, but I just want to make sure the audio part. I've got my hand over the lens. Your Honor.
Okay,
So, but it's just these proceedings right here are off camera. Do you want them?
well, I would love it. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you to do that though. Am I allowed to ask you to do that? I'm still maintaining a public courtroom, so I think I am. Thank you, thank you. So you're off, right? This will
Yes,
take
ma'am.
just a second, thank you. I just wanted to ask.
They mute us out again. What the hell are they talking about? Big secret out there. Yeah, I'm not a big Swiftie. I like Swifters. So what is going on in there today? This morning went by fairly smooth. See if we can do the same now for this afternoon. Is it possible? Can she do it? Are they afraid to fire her butt? I would not pay 2 cents to go see one of her concerts. No, no, no. Okay, jury coming in. I think they must be. What you doing, cameraman?
All right, you may be seated. Well, we're going to continue Mr. Hoskins' testimony, okay? You are Sean Hopkins,
Yes,
and you are Stoneborough, okay?
understood.
Okay, you can be seated. Go ahead, prosecutor.
Thank you. Okay. Mr.
Here we
Hopkins,
go.
we broke for lunch. We were talking about the phone conversation you had with Jennifer Crumbley when you called her into the school. Okay. So That morning, did both Jennifer and James Crumbley come to the school?
They did.
Okay, do you recall approximately what time?
I believe it was around 10:30.
Okay. Now, if I were to tell you that we had video surveillance that showed that you welcomed them to your office at 10:40, would that sound right?
That sounds right.
Okay. So, walk us through what happened from the time that you were notified that James and Jennifer Crumbley were there to the time that you went and welcomed them.
So when I was notified that they were there, I had actually texted Mr. Ejak to please come back to my office. He had been present through a majority of the meeting until we confirmed the parents were arriving, and then asked him to return. I then went out to the lobby of the counseling office area to greet the parents.
Okay. So from the phone call where you actually spoke with Jennifer Crumbley was 9:27 a.m. From that point, 9:27 a.m. until 10:40 a.m., where was the defendant's son?
In my office.
Okay. And what was going on there?
There was a conversation between myself, the defendant's son, and Mr. Ejak was there as well until approximately 10 a.m. During that time, I was still trying to affirm that parents would be able to arrive, and I was talking with the student about really what I was going to be sharing with his parents.
Okay. And tell me, sir, what was your expectation of the result of that meeting that you called?
My hope was that they would set a plan to get help for their son.
Okay. Was your expectation that they would take their son home?
That was my hope.
Your hope. Okay. So at 10:40 a.m., you welcome them into your office. Tell me what happens next.
We walked back into my office. The student was in there. And then mom and dad sat down. There were 3 seats in my office, 2 directly across from me, and then 1 that was kind of off the corner of my desk a little more. The student was in one of the 2 across from me. Dad sat in one of those, and mom sat in the one that was more at a diagonal from where I was.
When the defendant and her husband walked into the office, did they approach their son?
Not to my memory, no.
Okay. Did either one of them hug their son?
No.
So who started the meeting?
I believe I did, and I went over some of the things that I had talked through over the past 2 days with their son. I wanted to confirm some things I wasn't sure of, so I confirmed with mom that she did receive a voicemail from Miss Fine the day before, and just confirmed that what was stated in that meeting was true. And mom confirmed that she received it and that was true. And then I went over some of the things that I had received messages of from the teachers over the past 2 days.
Okay. Now, when you were asking Jennifer Crumbley to confirm that information, was she sharing any additional information with you?
Not to my memory, no.
Now, describe Jennifer Crumbley's demeanor when she walked into your office.
She sat down in the chair, felt a little bit distant.
What do you mean by that?
More just kind of like, it felt like it was a little bit of an inconvenience to be there.
Okay, you testified that you had to have these meetings in the past.
Yes.
Was this meeting similar to those meetings, or was it different?
Your Honor, objection to relevance.
Judge, it's relevant because the crux of this case is the defendant's failure to use ordinary care to avoid a tragedy. And her failure to use just ordinary care contributed to her failure to adhere to her parental responsibilities, which is her duty under Michigan law. It's all part of gross negligence, Judge.
Well, I guess it was the meeting unusual in any way? How many meetings like this have you had with parents in general?
Dozens.
Dozens? Okay. So, I mean, people react differently to, no one's very excited about coming to this school about their child, right?
I would agree.
Now, this wasn't a discipline issue, though, was it, sir?
No.
Okay. In fact, you had indicated, Jennifer Crumbley, that you had concerns with suicidal ideation.
I had concerns for his well-being, absolutely.
And you communicated that to Mrs. Crumbley before she got there?
Yes.
Okay. And yet still it was different than the dozens of meetings you had in the past?
I would agree.
So you said that the defendant's son sat directly across from you. James Crumbley was in a chair next to him. Jennifer Crumbley was off to your side.
I don't remember which chair student and dad were in.
That's
I know
fine.
they were both across from me, and Jennifer Crumbley was off to the side. A little
Okay.
more.
So you were asking them to confirm the voicemail, information left in the voicemail November the 29th, the day before?
Yes.
Okay, specifically what information were you asking them to confirm?
I asked first if they received the voicemail because I didn't know at that point whether they had or not. And then I asked to confirm the details of the voicemail, which were that shooting guns were a hobby that they undertook as a family and that they had went to the range over the weekend.
Okay. Did you tell Jennifer Crumbley that her son expressed to you his own feelings of his friend leaving the state?
I did mention that, yes.
Okay, and what else did you mention?
I mentioned the conversations I had with the student of the friend leaving, that the student was sad about that, the dog, family dog passing, grandparent of COVID being hard, and all of those which were told to me by the student were also confirmed by the parents.
Now, when you say confirmed, I take it that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this didn't catch Jennifer Crumbley by surprise.
It did not feel as though it was new information to the
Okay.
parents.
All right. Now, you testified that it was your hope that they would take him home that day. What do you mean by that?
I wanted to make sure the student was able to get the support that I felt was needed, and I was wanting it to be as soon as possible.
Okay. Did you feel like that he could be left alone at that point?
I did not want him left alone at that point. In fact, that's why I kept him in my office until I could make contact with parents.
Okay. And you communicated that to the defendant?
I do not remember if I communicated that to the defendant.
So when you discussed, well, first of all, did you communicate your hope that they take him home to the defendant?
Yes, my words were, I want him to be seen as soon as possible, today if possible. And I actually provided a list of mental health resources and handed that to Mom.
Now, when you say a list of mental health resources, could you explain a little bit more what that means?
Yeah, it was multiple pages of different services throughout the area, what they specialized in, whether they accepted insurance or not, and contact information for those different therapeutic options.
Okay, and that was actually provided to the defendant and her husband?
I handed it to Mom.
Now, when you communicated your expectation, what was Jennifer Crumbley's response?
I didn't feel as if it was going to be an absolute no, but it was made quite clear that it wasn't possible to do it that day.
Why do you say it was made clear it wasn't possible to do it?
That they had to return to work and they were unable to do it that day.
Well, who said that?
Mom,
Mom is in Jennifer Crumbley?
yes.
Did she speak for James or did James speak as well?
I don't remember James speaking on that topic.
So what happened next?
My comment was, then I said I'd like to see him as soon as possible. Today is possible. I was told today is not possible, so I said, is 48 hours possible? I will be following up.
In those dozens of meetings in the past, had anyone ever said that they couldn't have their son go with them that day?
I had not had that happen in a situation.
Never, I
like that.
would object to the relevance.
It's the same response as the last objection.
Okay, well, I guess you'd want to back up even further. Had you ever asked parents to take their child home with them that day? Have you ever requested that before?
I've encouraged parents to be able to get their son and or daughter help and therapy. I had never had it where it was feeling like I needed to push to make it happen.
And you say the feeling like you needed to push to make it happen. That's what you're experiencing November the 30th, 2021.
That is correct.
Okay. So tell me what's going on through your mind at this point.
I was a little caught off guard and a little confused because it was something that I wasn't really expecting that type of response, especially when parents came, and in fact, both parents came, which I wasn't expecting, nor did I request. I was a little surprised at their willingness to come, but then not completely follow through.
Okay. Now, you told the defendant and her husband that your opinion was this drawing showed suicidal ideation. Is that right?
That was my opinion, and I did not I saw it as somebody who was showing signs that could be associated with suicide. And so I took that and out of just an abundance of caution, wanted to make sure that the student was able to get help.
Okay, but you communicated that to the defendant?
I did.
Did you specifically ask them to take him home that day?
I did not specifically ask them to take him home. I asked them to take him to get help and therapeutic help.
Now, when it was made clear to you that Jennifer Crumbley was not going to take her son home, and neither was James, what is your next step?
My next step was to try and think of what is best for this student in front of me in this moment.
Okay, and tell me about your decision process.
When I looked through it, it was clear they weren't going to take him that day. So my first thought was, I don't want him alone. I want to make sure somebody who's experiencing.
Why didn't you want him alone?
Because I don't want a student who may be suicidal alone.
I cut you off. Please continue.
I then, after determining I didn't want him alone, I went through different options of what needed to happen. At that point, the student had requested to be able to stay in class. And parents were on board with him staying in class as a good placement. I was with our dean, who would be the person who does discipline. And of the 4 adults in the room, I'm the one who can't remove a student from class. So I asked our dean if there was any reason from a discipline standpoint or anything that he needed to do from a discipline standpoint that would prevent the student from returning to class.
And the response there?
No.
So you told us that you were taken aback. You were a bit confused by the response of the defendant. And now you moved on to your next decision with the information in front of you. Is that when you turned to Mr. Ejak and requested information regarding discipline?
It is.
Okay. And how did the meeting end? Tell us about that.
The meeting at that point ended fairly abruptly.
What do you mean by that?
Well, at that point, we had a student wanting to return to class. I knew that he wasn't going to be able to be removed to go get therapy that day. So I was kind of left with an option of, okay, this student, I can't keep a student from class if there isn't a reason to keep him from class. I asked if there was a discipline reason, and once we had kind of gotten to that point, I allowed the student to
Good
go
questions.
back to class based on the information I had, and then mom asked if we were done. And
Those were her words. Are we done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
What was your response to that?
My response was like, yes, so.
Now, you let her son go back to class before James and Jennifer left your office. Is that right?
There was a short time over, maybe 1 minute.
Okay. So tell us what happened when it was communicated to the defendant's son that he could go back to class and he left. What happened in that time span?
There wasn't anything noteworthy or different than any other student I had leave my office. I wrote a pass to allow him back into the classroom, and he had his belongings and went to class.
When he left, did either James or Jennifer hug him?
Not to my memory, no.
Did they say anything to him?
Not to my memory.
Did you say anything to him?
I did.
What did you say?
When I handed him his pass, I just let him know that I cared about him.
And why did you say that?
Because I do. Like I did. It was an
How
outlet
sad, really.
for a student who is sad with a student that we were talking about future plans.
Now, in the time span from when you wrote him a pass and he went back to his class and James and Jennifer were still there, did they continue discussion without him?
I don't remember any.
Okay. So what happened next?
I had handed them the sheet with referrals, and to my memory, they gathered up belongings and left.
Now, what was your plan as far as follow-up have this attack not happen?
My plan as far as follow-up was I was going to meet with the student the next morning to see if there had been more discussions and more plans about getting help. And then if there had not, my plan was to call Child Protective Services.
Now, how long would you say?
It's like
the
everybody
process
did.
from beginning to end?
Less than 15 minutes.
All right. And again, was that typical or atypical from these meetings that you've been in before?
Objection.
Same response, Jeff.
In your experience, how long do these meetings usually last?
They vary. I mean, I've had some where parents came, got their kids, and it was 5 minutes. I've had some where we
Yeah.
were in my office for an hour.
So the instances where they grabbed their kid, that was quick,
Could be, yes.
but when they spoke and talked through things, it was much longer.
Yes.
May I have one more, Your Honor? Nothing further, thank you.
Thank you. Good
Uh-oh.
afternoon, Mr. Hopkins.
Good afternoon.
My name is Shannon. I represent Mrs. Crumbley. When I'm asking questions today, if I ask anything confusing, can you please slow me down and let me know?
I will do so.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. It's true that you are licensed as a school.
That's my
counselor,
thoughts.
correct?
That is correct.
What does it mean to be licensed as a school counselor, or what does one have to do to obtain a license?
You have to graduate with a degree from an accredited university and meet all of the standards of the state of Michigan to become a school counselor.
And obviously you did that.
Yes.
Can you give us the example and some examples of the standards?
I have to meet the required trainings based on hours over a certain period of years.
Do you recall how many hours or?
Well, they're broken up into specific categories, but in totality, it's on top of the degree, 150 hours every 5 years.
150 every 5 years. And you just mentioned that they're broken up into categories. Can you just give us a quick idea of what these categories are?
Yep. Some are based on college. They have to be hours specific towards helping students get to college. Some are based on careers, and some are more general.
Are any of those based on suicide prevention or danger at school or discipline?
Those hours are not, but a degree in counseling is.
Aside from receiving your degree and those 150 hours of training, or hours that you had to obtain your license, did you have any other additional training or continuing type education regarding becoming a counselor? Or
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that.
The training is continual and goes well above and beyond 150 hours. It's oftentimes based on school need and oftentimes based on what is important in the profession.
And when you were testifying, did you say you graduated in 2012?
No,
I'm sorry, 2009?
I graduated undergrad in 2009, master's in 2015.
I'm sorry, okay, master's in 15. And at what point did you become licensed? Were you licensed, what year?
I passed the school counseling exam in the summer of 2014.
Okay, so starting in summer of 2014, you had to do at least 150 hours every 5-year period, correct?
When I was hired in 2015 and had the full licensure, I did 5 years, renewed my license in 2020.
Did you do the 150 hours or did you do more hours?
More.
Can you give us an idea of how many hours?
Significantly more.
Okay, when you say significantly more, are you talking double the number of hours, 50 extra hours?
I wouldn't keep track of all the hours that far beyond, but significantly more.
Okay, I understand, I just don't know.
More than 200.
More than 200, okay. And then, again, you've continued since that time when you renewed your license in 2020 to keep getting more and more hours, correct?
Correct.
So by 2021, it's fair to say you had over the 150 hours you needed, the additional hours you talked about, and then you had already started moving on into the 150 you would need for renewing your license for the next 5 years.
Yes,
Okay, did I say all that right?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Now, when, I want to go back through the exhibits that Mr. Keast admitted while you were on the stand. And if you need to see any of the exhibits, please let me know. I'm going to start with 155, which were the emails.
It is going better so far.
That started off with Miss, is it DeRiker?
It is the right here.
DeRiker. Do you need to see that in order to?
I would like to see this.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Your Honor, may I put it up on the screen, what's been admitted?
Sure, I'm sorry, what exhibit number is?
This is going to be number 155. And I just need to.
Okay.
Okay, so number 155, do you recall seeing this exhibit when Mr. Keast was speaking with you?
Yes, he showed the bottom email portion.
Okay, and the bottom email is from May 13th of 2021, correct?
That is correct.
And the issue on this day was a teacher wanted you to speak to Mrs. Crumbley's son to see how he's doing because he was failing class and trying to sleep all the time, correct?
Yes, it states he's failing my class and tries to sleep all the time.
Now, on this issue, on May 13th of 2021, I may have missed it. You don't recall meeting with Mrs. Crumbley's son to see if what was going on, do you?
I do not have memory of this meeting.
Do you not have memory of the meeting, or did you not meet with him? Do you even know?
Oh, it is.
I do not have memory of the meeting. Evidence that has been researched suggests that I did meet with him.
At that time, in May of 2021, you did not call Mrs. Crumbley to discuss this falling asleep and failing a class, correct?
To my memory, I did not.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the next exhibit, which is number 156. Okay, and it's popping up on the screen. So number 156, this is from September of 2021. So a couple of months later, correct?
Yes, and the next school year.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. So the May would have been the end of one school year and September would be the beginning of the next school year.
Yes.
Okay, in September, on September 8th of 2021 specifically, the Spanish teacher asked you to check in with Mrs. Crumbley's son because he had written a poem that said he felt terrible, that his family is a mistake, correct?
Yes, that is what she wrote in the email.
Now, on this occasion, in September of 2021, did you speak with Mrs. Crumbley's son?
No.
You did not. Okay, so then it would also be fair to say that you did not call Mrs. Crumbley herself and let her know that this concern had taken place.
Yes, as I stated earlier, I followed through with the teacher on
Okay,
this concern, and she gave me further clarification of what had occurred.
okay, so at the end of the day, after further clarification, all said and done, this September 8th date, you did not place a phone call to Mrs. Crumbley.
Correct.
You did not email her or, I suppose, communicate with her in any way, correct?
That is correct.
I'm going a couple months later, we saw exhibit 157, and I'm gonna go ahead and put that up on the screen. Now, 157 is the emails dated, it looks like November 10th of 2021. This was an email from the Spanish teacher to you indicating that Mrs. Crumbley's son is having a rough time and may need to speak with you, correct?
Yes, that she writes he is having a rough time right now. He might need to speak with you.
And on this occasion, you did speak with Mrs.
Friday
Crumbley,
was a
correct?
I
disaster.
did.
Oh my
This was the
God.
occasion where you saw him in the hallway and had a conversation with him, correct?
Yes, I caught him during passing time where there were a couple of minutes in between classes and let him know that if he needed someone to talk to, that I would be there.
Okay, so you talked to him, offered support, let him know where he could find you, correct?
Correct.
Now, on this occasion, in November 10th of 2021, after speaking with Mrs. Crumbley's son, you did not call Mrs. Crumbley, correct?
I did not.
You did not email Mrs. Crumbley about what took place with her son, correct?
I did not contact her in any way based on this email.
She's doing a
Now
lot
I'm
better.
gonna go to November 29th of 2021. This was admitted as People's Exhibit 158. Yeah, I got it up on the screen. And this appears to be an email chain between you and Mrs. Cabina. Is that correct?
Yes, she sent me, this is actually just saying that she forwarded the message. This is not the message.
I apologize. This message, however, that's forwarded makes you aware that Mrs. Crumbley's son was looking at different bullets in his first hour class, correct?
Yes, I do not have that email in front of me right now. So I don't have the exact wording. There it is.
I'm sorry, it's page 2, so I just had to
Thank
scroll down.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's alerting our Dean of Students and Ms. Fine that there was a student in first hour who was on his phone looking at different bullets at the end of the hour.
Now, on this date, on November 29th, 2021, you did witness Miss Fine leaving a voicemail, letting Mrs. Crumbley know what happened, correct?
That is correct. I witnessed Ms. Fine calling Ms. Crumbley and then leaving a voicemail regarding a conversation that happened during school.
And this jury has already heard the voicemail. We can agree that there is no request by Ms. Fine or the school that Mrs. Crumbley return the call, correct?
I don't remember the voicemail because I have not listened to it. It would not be odd to me if there was a request or not a request.
Thank you. Now, in that voicemail, I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask you about the voicemail. At the time of this issue of looking at bullets, you and Pamela Fine discussed this issue, correct?
What do you mean by discussed? I'm not sure I understand.
I'm assuming and asking, did you and Ms. Fine discuss the fact that Mrs. Crumbley's son was looking up bullets?
Are you asking in reference before the student arrived?
Yes, before or when the student arrived, either.
There was not much time between me getting there and the student arriving. The context of the meeting was largely led by Ms. Fine to gain an understanding from the student's perspective of what was going on at the end of the hour. First, to see if he was going to be forthcoming with the truth, and then to see what was actually going on and what his reasons for doing so were.
And when you guys spoke with him about the bullets, there was also discussion about other things people may look up on the internet that are not illegal, but just not appropriate during school hours, correct?
There was discussion about school appropriate behavior, yes.
And overall, Mrs. Crumbley's son was told looking at bullets not appropriate for school, correct?
Yes, looking at bullets is not appropriate during school.
And beyond that, there was no further disciplinary action taken by the school other than just a notification phone call, voicemail to Mrs. Crumbley.
To my knowledge, but I would not be the one making the disciplinary decisions.
As far as you know, though, that was the end of it.
That was the end of my involvement in it.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn to Exhibit 159. This was admitted when you testified. And this is an email that appears to be between Allison Karpinski, and this was sent to you by Ms. Karpinski. Do you recall this email?
I do.
Now, this email is dated on November 30th, 2021.
Yes.
Correct. And no, we agreed, November 30th, 2021 is the day that ultimately becomes the shooting, the day of the shooting.
Yes.
And this email was sent at 8:05 a.m. by the teacher to you.
Yes.
And specifically mentions that Mrs. Crumbley's son was watching videos on his phone of a guy gunning down people, correct?
It says that today he is watching videos of his phone of a guy gunning down people, and to continue, she writes, it looks like a movie scene and not security footage / a real event.
Okay, so she represented that it looked like a movie scene. It doesn't look like a real event. Okay, but she mentioned that it's definitely still concerning, correct?
Yeah, she says when taking into account some of his other behaviors, that she found it definitely still concerning.
Now, when did you become aware that Mrs. Crumbley's son was watching these concerning videos?
When I read the email.
At 8:05 in the morning?
I did not read the email at 8:05. I believe I read it approximately 30 minutes later.
Okay, so you would have read this email at approximately 8:30 that morning.
Around that time, yes.
Now, when you read the email at 8:30 that morning, you did not call Mrs. Crumbley's son down to the office to ask him about these videos, correct?
I was on the phone at the time with other parents.
So you did not call Mrs. Crumbley's son down to ask him about the videos. That's fair, correct?
I did as soon as I was able to.
Okay, so there's a time lapse between when you got the email and when you were able to speak with Mrs. Crumbley's son.
Yes.
Now, when you spoke to Mrs. Crumbley's son, you did not ask him to bring up the videos and let you watch what he was watching, correct?
Correct. I asked him what he was watching.
And you relied on the information he provided.
What do you guys think? Is she doing a way better job?
Exactly as I would if I asked him to show me the videos, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means.
I was relying on him to provide the information, which would be the same as if I had asked him to show the videos.
Okay, but if you saw the videos, you would know specifically what they look like. You are instead relying on what Mrs. Crumbley's son says was on the videos, correct?
Yes, I asked him what they were and he told me what they were. And I relied on the information he gave me.
When he told you what the videos were, the information you relied on, did he tell you where he obtained those videos from?
No.
Do you have any idea, or did you ask how long he was looking at those videos for?
I did not.
Now, on November 30th, so about an hour after the time period we just discussed, that was when Miss Morgan made you aware of this math paper that we've discussed extensively in this trial, correct?
Miss Morgan did not make me aware of the math paper. She made Mr. Ejak aware of the math paper.
I apologize. And then was it Mr. Ejak that made you aware of it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for clearing that up. Now, your testimony, you testified about the math paperwork, your observations, your thoughts about it on a couple of occasions over the last couple of years. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And when you saw the original photograph or the original math paper, we can agree that there is a gun drawn on the math paper.
Which one are you referring to as the original?
I'm speaking about the one. Let me put it up on the screen. It would be, it's within Exhibit 160, and it's the prior to alterations, the math paper. Do you recall seeing this?
There you go.
Yes, I was sent this in an email approximately 30 minutes into our meeting.
Okay, now when you saw, did you see the altered math test first, or did you see I called this the original. There's also one, because let's just be clear here. The shooter drew on a math paper, and what we see on the screen is that original drawing and writings. Is that correct?
What you see here is the photograph taken by the math teacher.
Of the original paper.
As it was when she had it, yes.
And then after she had it, the shooter wrote more on the paper, and we ended up with a second math paper that is essentially the original math paper plus some writings on it, correct?
Well, it's doctored.
Doctored. Okay, right. So I'm going to call this the original, and then I'm going to call the other one with the additional writing the altered version. Is that okay with you?
Understood.
Okay, for the purpose of questioning. Okay, now I'm going to open up the altered version as well, which was admitted as Exhibit 123. Okay, so it's fair to say that you are familiar both with the original math paper and with the altered one, correct?
I was able to look at both of them over the course of our meeting, correct?
And when you look at both papers, it's very clear that Mrs. Crumbley's son drew a picture depicting a gun, correct?
Yes, and the one especially that has no scribbles over it, I would not say that without context that it would be very clear on the altered one that that is a gun. Without context of the original.
Okay, I agree with you. So you're saying that the first photo on the left of the screen, it's clearly a gun, but when he altered the drawing, he crossed it off so much you might not know that had been a gun drawn there.
Correct.
Okay, when you saw the gun drawn on the sheet, seeing that gun, even just seeing the gun, that was not enough to make you believe that Mrs. Crumbley's son posed a risk to himself or other students, correct?
I wasn't sure whether he posed a risk to himself. So that is why I called in the parents.
Okay.
I was concerned, and I wouldn't call in parents unless I was concerned.
Okay, so you called the parents in because you were concerned, but we can agree that seeing the drawings, just the drawings alone,
Exactly,
were not enough
Mexi.
for you to conclude there is something dangerous to other people.
When I take that in context, that is only a piece of the information I had. I also was looking at his demeanor throughout it. I also was asking questions to him, asking if he was a threat to himself or others, and taking his response of sadness, which is not a common threatening response.
Okay, and it's in all fairness, and you've had lots of training on this, correct?
I have had training on this.
So you've been trained, you've been formally trained on how to assess this kind of information and how to deal with it, correct?
Correct. And the number one way that I would be dealing with it would be to entrust the care to parents.
To entrust the parents with the care of their child.
Correct.
Okay, so there was talk at some point in the materials from this case about a step 1, step 2, step 3. Do you know what I'm talking about in terms of evaluating a suicide risk?
I don't know what direct thing you're referring to.
Okay, there's, are there certain steps, if you do have concern, that you follow if a student is exhibiting what you called suicide ideation?
Well, suicide
Their
ideation
table's
is
getting
very
full of
different than
papers
active
again.
suicidal.
Okay,
So I wonder if what you're describing might be an active suicide checklist as opposed to what we do if we see suicidal ideation.
well, what do you do if you said in this case you were concerned about suicidal ideation, correct?
Yes,
So what do you do when it's a concern of suicidal ideation?
I call the parents.
Call the parents. Okay, and that's what you did obviously in this case.
Yes.
Okay, and one of the questions I do have for you, and I'm just going to page 72 from the civil deposition. This is just for you guys. Page 72 of the civil deposition is where I'm getting this question from. A drawing of somebody who is shooting a gun is just a drawing. That is something you've said before, correct?
I do not remember.
If there's not another person in the drawing, that's of significance to you when you see a picture of a gun, correct?
Are you referencing in regards to the math assignment?
Yes.
In the math assignment, if I see multiple people, I do have a different level of concern.
Okay, so explain for us then what, and I don't know why that clicked off, but it's gonna pop back up. So explain to us what you mean by when you see another person or you don't see another person. Tell us what you see up here and how things would change if there were multiple people.
Well, I see one body. If I see somebody holding the gun in one body, my response is completely different.
Okay, so, and have you had training about looking at drawings by students and being able to take them into account when you're assessing situations?
I've had training in how to assess situations. I would not say I've had training in students' drawings.
Okay, but your conclusion was that because there's not a second person, seeing a gun on these pages in and of itself alone would not be enough to cause you concern.
Again, you're taking a very small piece of that. That is just a piece of what I saw in totality.
Okay, so you were asked before, you didn't see anything that suggested that there was a gun in the hand on this drawing, and your answer was no, correct?
In regards to this drawing,
Yes.
I do not see a gun in someone's hand on this drawing.
Okay, you were asked, that's a pretty important thing for you to know or not. Do you agree? Your answer was a drawing of somebody who is shooting a gun. Still, there's not another person. It's just a drawing. Do you recall testifying that way when you were previously asked about this drawing?
That was not in regards to.
It's fair to say that, which drawing was it in regards to then?
Not this one.
So you testified at a deposition on September 14th of 2022, correct?
I believe that was the date, correct?
And there are, the discussion prior to those questions was about the drawing in class that day, and the drawing being on the violent side. Do you recall that?
In regards to the email from the teacher that we discussed earlier, yes.
Okay, so at the end of the day, your prior testimony that seeing a drawing of a gun, that in and of itself, by itself, does not create enough of a concern that something more sinister is happening, correct?
We are looking at a total picture and not just a piece of a picture.
And you are trained to look at that total picture, correct?
I took the approach to look at the total picture.
In addition to looking at the total picture, and by picture, I'm saying the picture that was drawn, you also look at the picture in terms of the demeanor of the person you're speaking to, the way the person is presenting, the way the student is behaving, a number of factors, correct?
I try to take in as much information as I can.
And taking in as much information as you can is certainly something that you have learned to do through, in addition to your training, your experience, correct?
Yes.
This is not the first time that you're calling a student down to your office to talk to them about something that may be problematic, correct?
Well, and that's why I was not the only one in the meeting, was I didn't want to take the approach of I was the only one making the call. I also had our person in charge of discipline with me.
And when so you are in the meeting, and when you're saying the person in charge of discipline, you're talking about Mr. Ejak, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Ejak is going to testify, but your understanding is that Mr. Ejak has also had training on dealing with these kind of situations, correct?
I do not know his total background.
You would assume that as the assistant dean of school of the school.
I'm just
he's got
objecting to my
training.
question for this witness. Mr. Ejak will testify. It's appropriate for him.
I'll withdraw the question, Your
Okay,
Honor.
yeah, he can answer that, Mr. Ejak.
Now, when you asked Mrs. Crumbley's son about the videos he was watching, he indicated to you that he wanted to be a video game designer, correct?
He did.
And he actually had a detailed conversation with you about an opportunity that Oxford has for students to get training to become video game designers, correct?
I showed him a program through Oakland Schools that could lead him into that area.
Okay, so you and Mrs. Crumbley's son had a conversation about if he was interested in pursuing a video game designer career. The school system even has opportunities for him to further that interest.
Yes.
And in that conversation, when you were speaking to Mrs. Crumbley's son, you believed he had a genuine interest in this video game designing future.
Yes, I did.
If you believed that Mrs. Crumbley's son did not have a genuine interest in becoming a designer, or that he really was drawing pictures with a plan to hurt people, you would have certainly taken different actions, correct?
If I believed that he was a threat to people, I would have taken different actions.
Now, you testified about when the parents came in and this meeting that you had with them. You obviously recall that, correct?
I do recall the meeting.
Now, when you met with the parents, they were present for approximately 12 minutes out of the entire time you spent with Mrs. Crumbley's son.
Yes.
And you testified that you were with Mrs. Crumbley's son for approximately an hour and a half, correct?
Correct.
So it would have been an hour and a half, including those 12 minutes.
Yes.
Now, prior to that hour and a half spent with Mrs. Crumbley's son, you had never spent any kind of time really, aside from short conversations with Mrs. Crumbley's son, correct?
Correct.
And you also had never spent time with Mr. or Mrs. Crumbley talking to them about or handling matters regarding their son, correct?
Correct.
So when Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley arrived at the school and were communicating with you on this issue, these are not parents that you're seeing on a weekly or even monthly basis, correct?
Correct.
I imagine at the school there are other situations where you have students that are essentially frequent flyers down to your office, correct?
I do know some students more than others.
And some of the students that you deal with more frequently, you're also used to dealing with their parents on a more frequent basis, correct?
Potentially correct.
And the more times you have to deal with the parents and the more times you have to deal with their child, the more you get to know about the family and the dynamics of the relationships, correct?
Yes, I would hope the more time I spend with someone.
Hello.
So when you are talking about how the Crumbleys greeted their son or did not hug their son, it's fair to say that you are not aware, you've never really seen the Crumbleys greet their son on other occasions, correct?
Correct. I'm not making a judgment on normal. I'm simply stating what happened.
Okay, and that's completely fair. And I just want to confirm though, that in terms of when you're making the observation, there was no hug or a certain kind of greeting. You also you haven't had the experience of seeing the Crumbleys greet their son on other occasions.
Correct.
And it's also fair to say that when parents come into the office, parents may have a different reaction about their child being down in the counselor's office or in the principal's office, correct?
Well, first I would say those are two very different places.
Okay.
But no, you don't expect all parents to respond in the same way.
You get parents who are angry at their child as they're walking in the door, right?
Rarely.
Some people are coming in and have more of an anxious look.
They could.
Some parents may come in and just seem like this is no big deal.
Again, all parents could respond differently.
Okay, so there's any number of responses, and in the end, and if your training says any different, let me know. There is no right answer about specifically how a parent should respond to going to a school counselor's office or going to a school principal's office.
Yes, again, I stated I'm not making a judgment. I'm simply stating what happened.
Thank you. Now, the dates that we talked about are dates where obviously through the course of this investigation, you identified emails where you were involved with Mrs. Crumbley's son. Is that a fair statement?
I'm not sure what your question is.
Did you provide the emails that we talked about and that were admitted as exhibits?
Did I provide them? The Oakland County Sheriff's Department had full access to my email.
Okay, did you at any point go through your emails to take a look at any emails related to Mrs. Crumbley's son?
On the night of the shooting, I did, with a police officer, go through and search for anything I could think of from that day and print and hand them to him.
Okay, and then ultimately, any of these other emails we've seen were discovered by law enforcement.
Yes, there's been a full cooperation with that.
Okay, and I'm not trying to allege you haven't been cooperative. I'm just asking that those emails, obviously, I imagine all your emails are stored on some kind of a system. Would that be?
Not my area.
Not mine either. This jury learned about my technology abilities on Friday. I want to just turn your attention to a couple of dates. On March 8th and March 9th of 2021, you didn't have any experiences with Mrs. Crumbley's son related to needing counseling or being called down to the principal's office, correct?
I don't remember it.
Okay. On March 16th, which was a Tuesday, March 17th, Wednesday, 18th, or 19th, you don't have any incidents on those dates with regard to Mrs. Crumbley's son either.
I don't remember any.
Okay. If there had been incidents involving Mrs. Crumbley's son on these specific dates, would you assume they would have been included in the emails of all the other dates that were included about?
If there were emails of them, they would have been included.
Okay, so we don't have any emails of March 16th, 17th, 18th, or 19th, correct?
To my knowledge, no.
We didn't see any emails or concerns that arose from, well, this is a Saturday, so probably not likely, Saturday, March 20th, correct?
I don't know of any.
Sunday, April 4th,
I don't know of any.
not even the next day, Monday, April 5th?
I don't know of any other meetings aside from the emails that have already been presented.
Okay, so then in all fairness, when I'm April 29th and November 4th, same thing, you don't have any awareness of any of these days?
I don't know of anything specific towards those days.
Okay. Now, you testified that it was your hope that Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley would take their son home and get him into a counselor that day, correct?
Yes,
When you had that hope, you gave them a list of counselors to suggest they call and noting which ones took various insurance programs, correct?
yes, I provided a list of resources.
Now, in terms of getting a counseling appointment within one day, you don't have any knowledge if those counselors on that list could guarantee a same-day appointment, correct?
I don't know counselor schedules and I can't speculate on what they would have had.
Is it fair to say that in the post-COVID time of 2021, mental health services have become more difficult to obtain appointments? And if you don't know and you're not the right person to ask, just let me know.
I don't work in community mental health, so I can't make that statement.
Have you personally had to call to schedule therapy type appointments for anyone?
I experienced a shooting. I called to cancel to get therapy for myself.
Okay, and when you called to get therapy for yourself, it was obviously a very, very urgent situation.
I mean, it was a pretty impactful situation, yes.
Okay, and did you end up seeing a counselor on the 30th?
No, I was cooperating with law enforcement and still in our building on the 30th.
Okay, so your appointment was sometime after the 30th, correct?
It was after the 30th.
And sometimes when you call to get a counseling appointment, it's not unusual to have to wait a couple of days or to schedule it, correct?
I think we're speculate on what's usual or not for counselors in this area.
That's fair enough. I appreciate that. When you were speaking with Mrs. Crumbley's son, it's fair to say that you and Mrs. Crumbley's son discussed whether he wanted to stay in school that day or go home prior to the arrival of Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley. Is that correct?
That did come up, yes.
And Mrs. Crumbley's son's position was, I want to stay in school, correct?
Correct.
COVID had been hard on him. He didn't like virtual learning. Was that your understanding?
He did state those two things, yes.
And there was discussion when the parents arrived that missing school is a source of anxiety for Mrs. Crumbley's son. Do you recall that?
I do.
So before Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley even got there, the option for Mrs. Crumbley's son to stay in school was on the table.
Well, there is no option of staying in school. School is a requirement unless you meet certain standards in which it is no longer available to you.
Okay, if a child gets sick at school, at Oxford High School, and vomits, okay, are they allowed to stay in school the rest of the day?
I don't know. That's not something I deal with.
Okay. Are you aware if a child has a temperature, if they are allowed to stay in school? And if you're not aware, let me know.
If they are allowed to stay in school?
Yes.
If we didn't, like, again, hypothetical, but not my area, I don't send students home.
Okay. Are you aware if the school will tell parents, you need to take this child home if they are sick at school, physically sick?
The only time I remember that being a discussion was during COVID.
Okay, during COVID, were kids who were exposed to COVID allowed to be in school?
No, because we were following rules and regulations outside of the school.
So even if parents said, I want my child to be in school, he has COVID, but I want him to be there, that's not allowed, right?
Judge, I have to object to relevance now. We're awfully far afield.
No, I think he said that that's not up to him. That's maybe,
Correct.
is that up to like the school nurse or some person? Like
There is no school nurse. The COVID tracing was not through the school, that was through the county health department.
All I'm asking is, there are times where if a child is sick, it's not an option for them to be present in school.
When the county health department regulated that, yes.
And you testified that if there had been a discipline issue as to Mrs. Crumbley's son, that may have been grounds to make him have to go home that day, correct?
That could be the case depending on the discipline issue.
And in terms of the discipline issue, I realize you're not the discipline person, but the school has the option, depending on what's correct, they could suspend a student, they could expel a student. There's processes over school discipline, correct?
There is a process. I am not a part of that process.
It's your testimony, though, that in this case, the school did not find a discipline issue with respect to to Mrs. Crumbley's son.
That is correct. There was nothing that was determined as a discipline issue.
So it was not a discipline issue that he was looking up bullets on his cell phone during a class.
I would not be the one making that determination.
In this case, that was not something he was disciplined for by the school.
I already stated I was not a part of any potential disciplines. To my knowledge, no.
Same thing with watching videos on a phone. The school did not make a discipline issue that would cause Mrs. Crumbley's son to go home for sitting and watching videos on his phone during class, correct?
There was nothing that was determined to be a discipline issue.
And Mrs. Crumbley's son sitting and drawing on math paper instead of actually doing the math paper he's supposed to be doing, as far as you're aware, the school also didn't find there to be a disciplinary violation for that.
Judge, Mr. Huffman already testified the discipline is in this area. That's Mr. Ejak's area.
he doesn't make that determination himself.
I'll ask Mr. Ejak then when he testifies. Now, you did testify that one important thing was that you did not want Mrs. Crumbley's son to be alone after you thought he was so sad and experiencing so much sadness, correct?
I did not feel that it was wise for a student with signs that could be suicidal ideation and things that I saw as suicidal ideation to be alone.
Now, when you spoke to Mrs. Crumbley's son, he also wanted to be around other peers that afternoon.
He stated that he wanted to be in school. I don't remember him specifically stating anything about other peers.
Do you recall telling Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley that it would be good for him to be around other peers versus being alone?
I don't remember specifically stating that to them.
Is that something that you believe, and if you can't answer the question, just please let me know.
What is your question?
My question is that something that you believe, that it would have been better for him to be around peers that afternoon versus being left home alone?
It's the judgment call I made.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That is the judgment call I made, was that I felt it was better for him to be around peers and people who are his age than to be home alone.
Thank you. May I have just a moment, Your Honor? I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins.
Redirect.
Thank you. Mr. Hopkins, you were asked about the total picture by council, so I'd like to go through that with you. On November the 30th, when you met with Jennifer Crumbley, did she tell you that on March the 9th of 2021, her son had texted her that he was seeing demons and bowls flying off the shelf?
I did not.
Okay, so did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that on March the 17th, her son had also texted her that he was hallucinating?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that on March the 20th, he had texted his mother that he was hallucinating?
Your Honor, I would ask that the prosecution stop the leading questions.
Judge, I'm just trying to get through redirect in a timely fashion, and this is specifically in response to her.
I don't know how we can ask it another way.
I'm not suggesting the answer, Judge. I'm just.
Yeah, he's not suggesting the answer. He's asking a specific question. It's a yes or no question, right?
Thank you, Judge.
He's not suggesting the answer, so.
Thank you.
If you could re-ask the last one.
Sure. Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that her son texted her on March the 20th, 2021, that he was hallucinating?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that in April of 2001, she had told a friend of hers that she thought Ethan was depressed?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that she had referred to her son as weird?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that she had never once set an appointment with any mental health professional?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that his only hobby was involving firearms?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that she posted on Instagram as early as June of 2021 that he had obtained his own handgun?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that the day before the shooting at 3 o'clock in the morning, she herself was researching clinical depression options?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that she and her husband gave her son a 6-hour 9mm handgun just 4 days before the shooting?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that on November the 30th, 2021, it wasn't the first time he asked for help?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that the gun that he drew on that math worksheet was identical to the 6-hour 9mm handgun that was used in the shooting?
I object to the prosecution's characterization that that drawing is identical. That's a conclusion that.
That's fine. Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that the day before, on November the 29th, on that Monday, the day before, after the voicemail was left for her from Pam Fine, she texted her son and said, LOL, you have to learn not to get caught?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that James Crumbley worked for DoorDash and had no obligation to not take their son home?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that on November the 30th, she was permitted to leave work when she needed for family issues?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that on November the 30th, the meeting that she allegedly had in the afternoon, she was not required to attend?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you ever that their son was struggling throughout the year 2021?
She confirmed it based on what he had said in regards to COVID and virtual school.
But they never went through these details.
Not these details, no.
So it took you all about 20 minutes to decide to request Jennifer Crumbley to come into the school immediately. That's what you testified to?
Yes.
Is that the total picture that you wish you had?
No.
Now, what if Jennifer Crumbley had told you all of these things I just went through?
Your Honor, objection is to speculation, and hindsight is 20/20.
Would you like to have as much information as you possibly could have?
Absolutely.
Was their son still in the room in your office when the defendant said she couldn't take him home?
Yes.
Nothing further.
All right, you can step down. Your excuse. You guys want a break? Okay, so we're gonna take like 10 minutes, okay?
All right, for the jury.
Are they on break, guys? I had to take my ears out for a minute. I'll have to do it again in a second. But
Okay.
where's it? Is it? What's going on?
We need to confer.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not trying to hide anything, we have some time issues.
Okay.
Can I have just the options so I can get my folders at least out?
As soon as we know.
Excuse me.
So this is,
10 minutes.
I'm
We need
gonna
to
have
make
to
sure
have
we
a-
have the right.
I'm gonna need.
I missed how long they're gone for. Is this break back in 15? What's going on? What's going on? What did I miss, guys? Jeez. No, not yet. Just waiting for the call. It's a break. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. They just sent me a message, said they're calling soon. Jazzy hit the camera, so we're gonna have to fix that. So I won't have my ears in, but I'll say 10 minutes. Okay, I will be here for that. So I'm gonna mute myself out. I am here, but we'll just, I'll be back in a few minutes. We'll wait here patiently. I'm thinking. There we go. All done, guys. And they usually send me, before it's out for the public, they generally send me the finished product. So if they do that, I'll just I put it in the comments, and yeah, I was on TMZ Live. Talking about Dominic Dunn. And it sounds like they're doing a thing on them tonight. So very well worth a look at. It's probably a minute or two behind because I'm sure depending on who they're talking to or what it's about, they probably want to be able to edit things out sometimes first, and it would be fast, I'm thinking, but that's too funny, Danny. Yeah. I can't believe they were calling me like they have. No, very interesting. Interesting. Oh, is that the beginning of it, Mixie? I don't know, friend. And they're fast. They're very fast, but I can't remember. I don't know who the guy was before me. Oh, it's an old one. I think that's an old one, Dandy. Yeah, I don't think that's the. Yeah, I'm not even sure. Like, I haven't watched it. Like, even the first one, I don't think I've even seen. The second one, I've got a clip from. And then this, but I haven't watched it, so I can't even say, oh, go here. But yeah, Dominic Dunn, that was sad. Our little lawyer here is doing a lot better today. A little bit of jiggling happening with the camera. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens next month. I don't know. I would think that they would stop using the same person, but doesn't bother me. It's even better if I'm doing something on true crime. And if you don't know much about Dominique Dunn, it's absolutely worth checking her out. Sad story. She was only 22 when her boyfriend did this to her. Oh yeah, it's very speedy, friend. I just say a couple things about the topic and then Harvey Levin gets carrying on with his. He usually chats a little bit. Seriously? Yeah, that's not the one because the big story, I think, was yeah, they generally do it live. They generally do it live and then they do their editing and what have you, and they put it out a day or two later. I'll put it in Discord if we don't find it. I'll put it in Discord when I get my copy. You watched for it. Yeah, well, I appreciate that. It's supposed to be live. I've got a relative that finds it all the time at the time. So I'll ask her if she caught it this time. So it looks like this Murdoch thing is looking. Okay, I think I have it now. Okay. You guys can hear me okay? Okay. No, that sounds good, friend. I'll put it in Discord. I'm starting to get things figured out. Extreme learning curve. This has been. So a couple more minutes and they should be ready to go. So what do you think? She was on fire there for a few minutes, huh? Didn't even take today's date. Oh no. Come on, let's do this. Oh, are you? Okay. There was a black fellow talking about something, and then it went over to Dominique's case, and then after they did their spiel, I just talked for a couple seconds. I don't know. I don't know, friend. Maybe Mexi knows? Didn't you guys find it one day when they were doing it? Dandy, was that you? Might have found the last one even. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see how this afternoon goes. Whoop, whoop. The rest of the day, they're at what? 3 o'clock? And they go to what? 4:30, I think.
That's what we do. Oh, and he's all right.
Ready for the jury?
Yes.
Hi. Fair enough.
I handed you the staff stuff
May I approach your clerk, Judge?
Don't intimidate. All right, you may be seated. Who's next for this?
Sergeant Joe Bryan.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give, or is it true so help you God?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, step up, have a seat, and state your name for the record, spell your first and last name.
Joe Bryan, Joebrian.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Sir, how are you employed?
Employed as a detective sergeant with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Can you keep your voice nice and loud for us, please?
All right,
Thank you. Sergeant, where do you work within the sheriff's office?
I'm assigned to the Special Investigations Unit.
Okay, what do you do there?
We conduct major investigations, internal affairs, assist a lot of other departments, anything kind of big we at least help out with.
Okay. Now, November the 30th, 2021, were you working that day?
I was,
Okay. Were you assigned to assist in the investigation of the Oxford High School shooting?
I was.
And at this time, how long have you been with the sheriff's office?
At that time, 27 years and some change.
Okay. So you're with the Special Investigative Unit now. Where did you work prior to that?
Same spot since 2011.
Okay. What about prior to that?
I ran the computer crimes unit for about 8 years. Prior to that, sergeant in jail, sergeant or detective out in Highland, and then the jail and road.
All right. So did you actually respond to the Oxford High School shooting scene? Did you respond to the shooting scene itself?
Not initially.
Okay. Were you directed to the Oxford substation, the sheriff's office?
I was,
Okay. And for what purpose?
to attempt to do some interviews.
Okay. Now, by the time that you had arrived at the Oakland County Sheriff's Office substation in Oxford, was the school shooter already in custody?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And was he brought to that location?
He was.
Okay. And during the course of your investigation, did you learn who the school shooter's parents are?
I did.
Okay. And his mother is Jennifer Crumbley?
She is.
She's in court today?
Yes, she is wearing the dark blazer. At the defense counsel.
The record will reflect input identification of the defendant, Jennifer Crumbley.
Thank you. Once you learned who the school shooter's parents were, did you attempt to speak with those individuals?
I did.
Okay, and tell us how that came to be.
I called him up and had him come to the substation to talk to me.
Okay, so you learned the identities of James and Jennifer Crumbley and you made a phone call.
Correct.
Okay, so on Friday, we introduced evidence of call logs that showed you contacted James Crumbley about 1:50 in the afternoon, November the 30th. Does that sound accurate to you?
That sounds about right.
Okay. And when you made that phone call, what did you tell them to do?
Just come to substation.
In Oxford?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did they arrive there?
They did.
Do you recall approximately the time they arrived there?
Probably around 2. We didn't wait much for them to get there.
Okay. And again, on Friday, there was evidence of their GPS data locations that indicate they were there at 1:58 p.m. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yes, sir.
All right. When you conduct interviews with individuals pertaining to investigation, criminal investigation, are those interviews generally recorded?
Most of the time.
Is that audio recorded as well as video recorded?
When available, yes.
Okay. Does the Oxford substation, the sheriff's office, have the capability to record interviews in such a fashion?
They did and do. Yes.
So on November the 30th, 2021, did you interview both James and Jennifer Crumbley?
I did.
Okay. And was that interview recorded?
It was.
Have you had the opportunity to review that recording?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that recording fairly accurately depict your interview with James and Jennifer Crumbley on November the 30th, 2021?
It does.
Judge, that's people's 340. People move to admit.
We have no objection.
340 is admitted.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to play it for the jury, but before we do, I just want to confirm with you, Sergeant, that the recording that we're going to introduce as evidence is Exhibit 340. It has a date and time stamp. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, but that time stamp is actually an hour off.
That's correct.
Okay, is that daylight savings time?
I don't know why it's off an
Okay.
hour. I really don't.
That's fair. But we know that they arrived at 1:58 in the afternoon, and did you speak with them immediately after they arrived?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be the time you spoke with them, not 2:58.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
How long is it, Sergeant? Do you know?
The video?
Yeah.
Like 15 minutes, probably.
It's
Not very
around,
long.
around 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
So Sergeant, as I get this queued up, this would have been right after they found out that their son was taken into custody for the Oxford High School school shooting?
Correct.
just so we can identify everybody. This is you in the blue shirt,
It is.
and the individual to your left in the video is who?
My partner, Rob Miller,
Okay. Individual with the hat,
James Crumbley,
and the female in the video.
Jennifer Crumbley.
Okay. And again, this is 1:58 and 59 seconds, November 30th, 2021.
Yes, sir.
So, we have obviously we don't know all what happened yet, because everything's still ongoing. Our understanding that he wasn't involved in a school shooting, he was the one who did everything. He said he acted alone, that's basically one thing we've asked him so far, because there's word about other students or other people in the audience. Want to get some questions from you, or ask you some questions first before we even start talking to him. Is there, I hate to stop you, is it possible for me to have a word? My mouth is fixed. Yes, I'll get super dry, breaking out. Was there any conversation? And we do not know, there are several people who've been shot though. This is my partner back. Okay, so but we really need to talk to him. Of course, we can do that. Very good morning. That's what I understand. But let's talk about that. You've never done anything bad. Jennifer, what is your date of birth? Last name is also Crumbley. And Chase, what is your date of birth? So, we're coming in this very early, but when I say there was an issue this recently, was that? This morning. What went down this morning? Well, he was writing, yes, show them the picture. He was doodling on a test, or a practice test. Do you think we should probably have a lawyer? That's up to you. I think we probably should have a lawyer. I think we can speak. I know. To the cops. And we'll answer these. And here's our perspective right now. This thing is still very, very fresh. Right. Right. People are still on their way to the hospital and such. We need to know what his state of mind is. Is there explosive devices anywhere? Is there other guns anywhere? Did he hide guns, ammunition, explosive devices? Are there any other victims? We need to know these things quite rapidly. I was in town. So all you guys go to, I'm paired up. When I see 5, I start concerned. I headed to the high school, obviously couldn't get to the high school, turned into the Meyer parking lot, and I saw these kids standing outside. I'm trying to call my son, make sure he's okay, and he texted me that he loved me. He texted me that. And somebody said that there was an active shooter. 35 minutes before he called me, freaked out because of the situation. He was drawing that on the paper and the cops would call him down.
She looks totally different. Sounds good, Nicole. Pam, I hope you're doing well.
From the counselor. I texted Ethan at 12:21, you okay? He said, yeah, just got back from lunch. I said, you know, you can talk to us, we won't judge. He goes, I know, thank you, I'm sorry for that, I love you. I said, I love you too. And then, you okay? And hear that. And then he told me about what's going on, and I freaked out and I drove here from work. And that's where we're at. What time did you text him? That was at 12:21, and he was just getting back from lunch. So you guys had a meeting with the counselor this morning over the rule? Yeah. I said, what quick answers.
What, the first hour, second one, what time was it?
I got to school at 10:30,
So it would have been
earlier. First or second hour, I don't know.
And what did he say?
I mean, he just said he was sorry, he just said, you know, like.
Did he have an issue, like being picked on?
No,
Or?
no. Not that we know of, his best friend. His parents just sent him somewhere to Wisconsin for an OCD rehabilitation. That was his only friend that he had. They hung out all the time at school. Our dog, our Great Pyrenees, just passed away a couple months ago. My mom died back in April. So that's.
So you got all the stressors going on.
They didn't.
They say, you know, you guys go over this with them, like, what is that, like, mobiles? Anybody ask them what the mobile was?
No, the counselor just said, you know, there's no. I didn't even, honestly, I didn't even like think about that, cause, I mean, it's Ethan, like, Ethan's like, he's a perfect kid, like, he doesn't do anything, he doesn't get in trouble at school, he doesn't, like, is that how?
That's your guy? What kind of?
It's a 6-liter, man. It was hidden in our in the case, and bullets were hidden in a completely different spot underneath some jeans. I raced home. And
You got this, or you saw all the cops?
after I saw the cops, after I found out it was an active shooter, after what went on this morning, I immediately raced home. And found the gun in his hands when I called you guys. I called you guys right away and let you know.
Where, how far away is your guys' house from the high school?
Like right we live on the street.
I'm not familiar with that.
He walks between the school. It's really right in the village.
So what we'd like to do, is talk to your son. And obviously you mentioned earlier about a lawyer. He is totally entitled to one. That's gonna be all up to you guys, because it's his age.
We would like.
I'm messaging Andy right now.
Okay. Can Andy handle?
Andy can get me something.
We would like a lawyer present from here on out. Okay. And there's no disrespect to you guys, it's just, we don't, I don't want to, I only see this stuff on TV.
At school.
All I know is I called from the counselor about that, he texted me, and we went down there, and that's.
That's all that was about.
That's all it was about. And he didn't seem worried about it, and he said he just more welcome to stay at school, or he could go home, and I really wish we
Would take
could go home.
Is this, or is that, I'm not here for the time being, that we, he's better arrested, he's going to, either jail or children's military for a short time. So we're going to talk, so. Any medical conditions, any mental conditions we need to be aware of?
Somebody gets anxiety or tough, maybe or something.
Does he have any meds or anything like that that you have at home that you might need to bring through? No meds, no, is there no treatment for mental health, anything like that? Give me 1 second, I'm gonna get a consignment form for the community, a lot of stuff we have to ask them, as far as like weight and all that kind of stuff, but one of you guys can go with this.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a problem, bro. Alright, so give me 1 minute for the form, I'll be right back. I'm sure so, the same. Any trouble with them with the law or anything?
Just hit that like on your way out. I was busy looking at something else and I came back and I was like, oh my God, it's back. He's a dumbass.
No, it's great. We were talking to him about his grade. I'm sorry, it's what? It's great. Great, okay.
It's still in geometry. And I got on to him. You know how to put all this.
Excellent. You get the
All good.
he's gonna be safe. Okay.
With trials, they seem to come in quite a bit more often. And a lot of times, P9, they're bots. Like, a lot of times they're just bots. So it's like, I just don't care. Go away. Bye. See you another day, I'm sure.
Family members, you should check on any family members you make because
Zap.
any family members that you want to hurt. Well, I mean, she's not gonna. It's just fine. It's in the school. He apologized about last night.
I can't hear what they're saying.
Talked about his grades. So, like, listen, we just want you to try. I mean, she don't have, uncompleted assignments. That's all we want to be. Sound great?
Yeah, I've got it cranked.
Not Facebook, Instagram.
Yes.
Welcome back. What grade are you in, Nicole? How's it going for you?
They were empty, the gun was empty, bullets were in a completely different place. Coming around.
I hope the jury
We bought 200.
I thought it was just a box.
has a good, clear.
It wasn't an exorbitant amount of money, because you would have known.
Approximately $56.
Okay, then he only bought 100 rounds, and so these guys spent 50. So,
Good and
yeah,
crazy.
he goes to shooting range all the time. He goes to yes. I've been trying to teach him safety, and I mean,
It was a hobby that they did together.
sure.
Still not gonna release his name on it.
He's a juvenile, they won't do that.
Hmm?
No, they won't. He's a juvenile, they won't release him.
Speak up, people. Speak up.
James Robert.
Yes.
Jennifer, what's your number?
So I tried calling him and telling him it was emergency tomorrow right now. I don't do it.
Jennifer Lynn. You guys still there, correct?
Just can't hear a darn thing. People, come on. Can you imagine you'd just be numb?
You guys want to pop up? I'll leave your phones in there.
Where are they going? Oh, Ethan.
Ethan, how tall are you? 5'11", maybe? 5'11". How much do you weigh? 180. Eye color? Blue, grayish. Hair color? Brown. Okay, so we were gonna ask you a bunch of questions about why you did this and get your whole side of the story. Your parents want to retain insurance, so we'll not be asking any questions about the incident that you were involved in. Your parents popped in here to give you some basic information. You will have a contact with them eventually. We'll be taking you to either Oakland County Jail or Children's Village, Fort Bliss, get you live after we take all your clothes and everything else you have on you. Any questions for Randy? You have to ask, it's up to you. If you want to ask me something, go ahead. I don't think we need to ask any questions right now. Okay, pop up, I'll back up. You say you're extra.
That's why.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Yeah.
Whoa.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Whoa.
Didn't even like hair. What the fuck?
Whoa.
Before we freak you, ER information. Do you have any questions for us?
So typically what happens is, now we haven't done you.
Somebody contact us and let us know where you're going to be.
Yeah.
When?
A day or two, could be today, could be tomorrow. It'll wait it, right?
Did the mother have any emotions at all?
We understand, right?
So somebody will be in contact because of his age.
Did the mother, other than like, why? Why should I stay in here? Did she show any tears like the dad did? Anything? Hello, 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 Carrie. Wow,
Mr. Brian, person we heard sobbing at the very end, was that the defendant or was that?
James.
I would object. They're
Why?
both crime at the end. I think that's misleading.
The only one who can
I
make
think
that
it's- okay.
is Sergeant Brian.
Okay, well, he has personal knowledge. You can rely on the evidence.
Yeah, he cried.
You can, all the evidence will be available for you when you deliberate as well. Okay.
And Sergeant, we had some pauses in there. That's because personal information was being obtained from the defendants?
Correct.
Okay. Judge, I'm going to move to admit that the transcript of the interview is exhibit 424. The audio is a little bit garbled over the two TVs that the court has in the courtroom.
Any objection?
Your Honor, I have not seen 424. They have not sent it to me.
We can,
So
feel free to take a look at my copy while we can,
Okay.
the court can withhold the ruling.
Subject to review, you can let me know in the next 2 days. Okay.
yeah, absolutely, and likely, no objection, but I need to see it. Thanks.
This is a transcript.
Yes, Judge.
All right.
That would be 424. We'll revisit.
Yeah, let me know this. All right.
Okay, we'll do.
Certainly. And Sergeant Brian, what was your impression of the defendant's demeanor throughout the interview?
Atypical from what I'm used to on something like that.
What do you mean?
Your Honor, I would object as to the foundation, lack of foundation.
Sure. Sergeant Brown, you've been in the sheriff's office for 29 years now?
Yep, a couple months.
Okay. And you've been with the Special Investigative Unit for over 10 years?
Yes.
Okay, and you already told us that that is the unit within the sheriff's office that handles the major investigations?
Yes.
Okay, that includes internal affairs?
Correct.
And it includes homicides?
Correct.
How many interviews of either witnesses or suspects of crimes have you think you've been a part of?
5,000, maybe
Okay.
more.
This is something you do on a day-to-day basis?
Every day.
Okay. And you described the defendant's demeanor as atypical?
Correct.
Okay, and tell us why.
Your Honor, I would object as to this witness's opinion when the jury can see what's in the video. Every person in life reacts differently. This is very grossly unfair and prejudicial.
That's argument. The counsel's free to make that
Isn't the best
argument.
evidence of how she reacted to the video itself?
Well, I think an officer with 30 years of experience is in a unique position to give that testimony.
I think the jury can decide for themselves. The jury's gonna see the evidence, they saw the videotape, they can decide that her behavior is normal or not normal.
Thank you, Judge.
How do people, I guess you can ask, how do people react when their children, you've had other cases with children being charged.
Yes, not a school shooting, but yes, I've had many cases where kids have done bad things.
Okay.
I've had to tell the parents.
And you've had to tell the parents that?
Yes.
Okay. And what you experienced on November the 30th was not consistent with what you
Your Honor,
experienced at the
I
time?
objected on same thing.
That was the
No,
court's.
you're right.
I didn't hear the question.
I was just following up with the court's question, Judge, that in his experience, he's had the opportunity to interview parents of a juvenile who's done something illegal.
What's a common reaction that you've experienced?
Crying, disbelief, why, those
Your
kind of
Honor,
things, Your Honor.
Again, I object. It's irrelevant and it's prejudicial, and no other parents have had their child commit a school shooting. He just said, this is
Well, that's not
such a
true.
different case. Well, he said in his experience, he hasn't talked to anyone else with a school shooting.
He said he's dealt with children who've done very bad things, right?
This is like bad though. I mean, this is
Yeah.
like,
Well, we're gonna move on anyway. You guys can watch the video and decide for yourselves, okay?
I've done it further, thank you.
Okay, props.
Uh-oh.
it's fair to say that every parent reacts differently when confronted with news about their child.
Yes.
And you don't know Jennifer and James Crumbley, correct?
No, I do not.
And prior to this day, you had never met Ethan Crumbley.
No.
So whether their reaction was even normal for how they normally react, you wouldn't even know that.
Correct.
I have nothing further.
Redirect.
Just briefly.
Your Honor, I do have one question, if I could just have a moment. Okay, there's one, it's listed with me. Okay. I was just asking about an exhibit, Your Honor, that's listed through Sergeant Brian, but it's coming in through a different
Okay,
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I'm keeping track.
okay, yeah.
Thank you.
That was only, the video was, and the transcript were the only ones.
Correct.
Mm.
Correct.
Okay.
It's just
Um,
blowing me
in your
away.
experience, you ever deal with a parent in this situation who was scrolling through her phone
Yep.
during this interview?
No.
Nothing further.
Your Honor,
I'd be
I
leaving
object as relevance and she's giving the phone to him. I at least ask for recross.
You can ask me another question if you want. Go ahead, go ahead.
While Mrs. Crumbley is showing you things from her phone during the interview, correct?
She showed me the picture, yes, ma'am.
And she's trying to zoom in on the picture and the thing won't zoom in, correct?
Correct.
And she's sitting there scrolling, looking for it on other messages and threads. Or
I don't know.
you don't know?
I don't
Okay,
know.
fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, you can step down. And
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Who's next witness?
Judge, may we approach?
Just blows me away, guys. Like, really. She's got a little bit of Saul in her. I just never think it's good when I've never seen it. Yeah, I bet you know your law's pretty good too, right? Bunch of smarty pants in here. That's awesome. So I have some documents to go through on Richard Allen after this, and I might do something on him in a while. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, a big Dalmatian just walked by with its owner. I don't know. She did though, right? Like what? She just looks totally different than she did when this first happened. I would imagine.
There
I would
are
imagine.
a large number of exhibits that we want to tailor for you, pictures of the scene and things like that. So rather than have you hang out while we do that.
That's true too,
I'm going
Dandy.
to release you for the day, all right? And have you come at 8:30 in the morning. All right, I'm going to get started at 8:30 in the morning. During this trial, do not read, listen to, or watch any news reports about the case. Under the law, the evidence you are to consider to decide the case must meet certain standards. For example, witnesses must swear to tell the truth, and the lawyers must be able to cross-examine them. Because news reports do not have to meet these standards, they can give you incorrect or misleading information that might unfairly favor one side. So to be fair to both sides, you must follow this instruction. Do not go on social media. Do not go on Facebook or post or read Facebook. Do not do research. Do not discuss the case with anyone. Don't read a newspaper. Don't watch the news. Any questions about that? We're making good time, but I don't, you guys hang, but it's easier for us to go through the exhibits while you're driving home. It'll be quicker this way, okay? Any questions about the schedule? All right. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow at 8:30, okay?
All rise for the jury.
Seriously? What?
All right, you may be seated. Okay, so tell me what we're doing now. You guys are spending time together and
First, Judge, what I'd like to do is go through our exhibits that we have with Detective Stoic. Those are the exhibits that council objects to. What I want to do is remove the specific exhibits that
I don't know.
agreed upon,
okay,
and then we can come back in here and the court can rule upon the balance.
okay.
So maybe if we.
But they went home for the day,
15 or
right?
20 minutes for me to do that. We just went through it at
Okay,
lunch.
so you're gonna let me know.
Yes, that's agreeable to the court.
That's fine. I was trying to figure out at the bench what the exact process is that you were asking about. So you are going to spend some time with Ms. Smith and you're gonna let me know?
Yes.
Okay.
First, I'm going to fix the exhibit list.
Okay,
and then
sure.
I'll get a copy to Ms. Smith as well as the court, and then I'll speak with Ms. Smith.
Okay.
And if we don't have a complete agreement, we'll let the court know, and then the court can make the eventual ruling.
Is that's today?
Yes, Judge.
Okay.
If the court is able to stay.
I'll stay till forever.
They say
have to
8:30?
talk to deputies into staying with me, so.
It shouldn't take terribly long.
Okay. All right. So you're gonna let me know.
Yes, Judge.
Is it okay if we just sit here, Your Honor?
It is okay to sit here. If you want her to stay with you.
Can she stay with
Yeah,
me?
she can. Yeah. Yeah, they're going through exhibits. So, okay, so you're gonna let me know.
Yes, Judge.
Please keep in mind that are you guys still gonna film or? Yeah, I don't know, because I wanna make sure I don't get complaints about, media being up. Privileged communication or.
I think that's up to you, Your
That's a
Honor.
question.
It is?
Sure, courtroom,
I like this guy. Why don't we not record while they're going through exhibits and then when we go back to on the record and make rulings about it, because she's going to talk to her client and that's okay. Right, good.
Okay, so they're going to go through their stuff. Okay. I don't know. It's something that's on the TV in the living room. So, okay, well, I guess we find out more in the morning. She said 8:30, right? I just want to make sure that I set this up properly. I do. That's exactly. Oh, goodness. Well, guys, I guess by that time I'd already been up for a few hours, so I'm good to go. So, guys, thank you once again for being here. I appreciate you guys, and we'll see you guys in the morning, if not later today. Don't forget to hit that bell, subscribe, like, share, all the good stuff. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.